Hey everyone, I'm Joe. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to get dirty building this planter box. This is going to be a two-part series. The first part is going to go through the actual construction of the planter box itself, and then the second part is going to be a shorter video just on the setup for lining the box, getting the plants in, and putting in an automated irrigation system that is totally hands-off. If you've been to the channel before, or if you're new to the channel, please consider going to watch some other videos, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe. Alright, let's jump right into it. So what I'll do is, at the end of the video, I'll freeze on screen the exact sketch I used to build this project with the dimensions written on it, and you can go ahead and take a screenshot and build the exact same planter box with free plans. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rip all of the boards to the width that I need. So there's only a few pieces that need to be ripped to width. Those are one side of the legs, the trim that's going to go around the top of the box, and the strips that are going to be used to hold up the floor. The width for the legs is going to be 4 3/4 inches, plus 3/4 inch of the other side of the leg gets you to 5.5 inches. And then the trim piece around the top is going to be 2.5 inches. So you could buy 1x3 material to avoid ripping it. And then the strip that's going to hold up the floor, you can really rip to whatever dimension you want, but in my case, I ripped everything to 1 inch. After everything was ripped to width, I switched over to cutting everything to length, and this really is up to personal preference, but I, again, included the dimensions for this exact planter at the end of this video. Okay, we got all our stock ripped to width and cut to length for the most part. We have the long sides of the box. We have down here, we have the short sides of the box. We have the narrow side of the leg, and we have the wide side of the leg. Right here, we have the trim that's going to go around the top, and then these two 3/4 by 3/4 pieces will make up the ridge that the bottom of the box will sit on. I'm intentionally not cutting the trim or the lip for the bottom of the box yet until the box is made. Then I'll cut those to exact fit. The other thing you'll notice is I haven't cut anything for the actual bottom of the box yet. The reason for that is that I was trying to do this really budget friendly on the lumber, given current lumber prices. So I'm just going to use all of the leftover offcuts from trimming this down. So what that means is my pieces for the bottom won't be 100% uniform width, but you're never going to see it. It's the bottom. It's going to be covered with dirt. It's totally fine. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add one small detail to this. I'm going to put an angle cut on each of the leg pieces just to kind of make it look not quite as bulky. The other thing too is the deck's not 100% level. It's an older deck, so if there's less surface area actually coming in contact with the deck, it's going to sit a little bit more level and won't have to worry so much about it rocking. All right, I'm gonna go with 3 inches contacting the ground, which is gonna put me right there. And then I'm just gonna come up with an angle that I think looks good to my eye. I'm happy with that. So I just clamped the piece I just sketched out the angle to the rest of the legs, just so I could get a bunch of uniform legs really quickly. And if you noticed, I actually clamped up 6 pieces instead of 4, so I ended up having to recut the 2 pieces that were for the middle, which I'm cutting right here. Next, over to the drum sander just to smooth out the legs, and this is obviously totally unnecessary, especially for a pressure-treated planter box that's going outside on your deck. Now I'm moving outside to assemble this pretty close to where it's going to end up in its final position. just because it's going to be pretty heavy when it's done, especially since this one's 8 feet long. And I didn't know if there was going to be anybody to help me move it out of the basement when I was done. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm actually putting together the two narrow ends. I'm just picking out the best side of the pieces to face outwards and making sure the angle on the legs is facing in the proper direction, which in this case is to the inside of the box. And then I'm just going to use a scrap cut off to use as a spacer. And I'm going to tack everything with a brad nailer once I have it in position. And then I'm going to go back and countersink holes and fire in the screws. It's just easier to get everything aligned with the brad nailer to where you want it, and then come back and fill in the field with the screws. That's one side done. We'll just go ahead and repeat the exact same process for the second side.
Tilt it up.
Alright, after the short ends are finished, we're going to move the two short ends up to the deck right where the planter box is going to end up residing, just to make it easier to move it in the end. And we're going to go ahead and put the long sides on. It's easiest to do this by flipping the ends over and building up from the bottom. This way it's kind of less of a balancing act with the ends. And if there's one tip I can give you from this entire video, go out to Target, buy yourself a couple of gallons of bubble mix, and use those to help support the boards while you put it together.
Good job.
And again, with the long sides, just as I did with the short sides, I'm going to go ahead and use the brad nailer just to get everything aligned and in place. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to drill a bunch of countersink holes to screw everything in from the back.
Good job. All right, hold, no, don't pull it out. Okay, good job.
You do a sign.
Yeah? All right.
And this was definitely a family event. My daughter even came out to cheer us on as we assembled it. And at one point, we had 3 generations building this at a time when my dad and mom came out to help us as well. Here I'm tacking the front face of the leg on. The brads here are just temporary. I'm going to come back and I'm going to use some trim screws, stainless steel trim screws, to secure the legs from the face. The leg is really what's going to support the weight of the sides, and that will all be screwed in from the inside. Now we're going to measure to find the center for the middle leg due to the length. If you're making a shorter box, the middle leg's not going to be necessary. But anything over 6 feet, I would suggest putting the leg in the middle for extra support. We're just going to go ahead and clamp this in place and then screw it in from the back. And then we're going to repeat everything we just did to do the opposite side. Alright, next I'm going to install the cleats that are going to hold the floorboards on, and those are only going to go on the 2 long sides. It's not necessary to put cleats on the short ends. After the cleats are on, the next thing we're going to do is put the floorboards down. You'll notice my floorboards are various widths just because I was using the leftover offcuts to save on wood. When you're putting the floorboards on, you're going to want to try to get some spacing in between those boards for drainage. It doesn't really matter what the spacing is. You just don't want it too wide so that dirt falls through, but you want it wide enough so that you have relatively even drainage across the bottom of the planter. And we're just using a carpenter's pencil to get roughly a 1/4 inch gap. You can see we're not doing this perfectly. It's mainly just to eyeball the gap. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and we'll put the trim around the top edges. I did cut this after measuring the final assembled box so that it would be perfectly sized and the miters would line up perfectly around the perimeter with no gaps. And that's it. The planter box is finished and ready to fill up and start your garden. As I said, in a few seconds I'll put the diagram that I drew to build this planter box on the screen, and also there'll be a part 2 that goes over actually putting the plants in the planter box, lining the planter box, and putting in an irrigation system. Alright everybody, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and hitting the thumbs up button. Thank you.